Welcome to Curito Connects. I'm your host, Jenn, and I've been conversing with friends around the world about life challenges and impactful moments. Conversations on this platform look at answering the questions, how we overcome challenges and how our experiences shape who we are and the work we do today. I hope this work can inspire you on your own personal and individual journey. Let's dive right in.
Hello, my guest today is Lydia Chang, founder of Origins Wellness, a bilingual speaking yoga and wellness retreat center based out of Baisawan, a short 40-minute drive outside of Taipei, and a Taiwan Lululemon legacy ambassador. Hi, Lydia.
Hi, Jenn.
So happy to have you on Curito Connects today. So Lydia and I knew of each other, but didn't officially meet until a few years ago. I think maybe by now it's like 3 or 4 years ago.
Probably longer. Time flies.
Really? Yeah, maybe. Okay. But we were introduced by my old neighbor, Greg. So we'll give a shout out to Greg. And we were introduced because of our interest in wellness and retreats and yoga. And we have been super supportive of each other's business ventures since. Lydia grew up with a meditation practice thanks to her mentor, her dad, and like many, began her career as a corporate accountant at KPMG. Well, I shouldn't say that everyone worked at KPMG, but everyone who started their career in the corporate world. When I invited Lydia to Curito Connect, she informed me that she wanted to talk about how a recent diagnosis of an autoimmune disease led her to heal through Ayurveda and yoga, and how this journey taught her to advocate for thyroid diseases and risks for women, but also the importance of knowing ourselves, saying no, and embracing new opportunities. So I won't say more, and I will let Lydia share with us her story.
Thank you, Jenn. So happy to be here. So where should I start? Should I start from when I quit my job in the beginning and how I started Origin?
Sure. Why don't you go ahead and share with us just really briefly how you left Canada to come back to Taiwan to start Origins, which at the time, Taiwan didn't really have like a retreat center, like what we would think of when people think of, oh, I want to go on a retreat, like a yoga retreat. And most people would think immediately Bali, they would think immediately Thailand. No one would really think to come to Taiwan. Mm-hmm. So what really inspired you to quit your job and come back and build Origins?
That's a good question. So I was born in Taiwan and I grew up in Canada, and I studied there, and I later became an accountant, and I actually worked in the corporate world for almost 10 years until I decided to leave. So what made me decide to leave really was it was a spontaneous decision after coming back to Taiwan to visit my family and going back to my childhood home by the beach, which, Jenn, you've visited before. It's a very interesting place. So this location is right by the beach, but it's been abandoned for close to 50 years. So at that moment, when I re-enter my childhood home, I just had this idea, like, wouldn't it be so nice to have a retreat center here? Since in Taiwan, like Jenn said, there isn't any. So I just saw a business opportunity and decided to pursue it.
And that was 2017. The landscape has changed since 2017. Now, yes. If you Google, you can find a few yoga retreat centers in Taiwan, actually. Just a handful, not that many. Yours still pops up in the Google search as the first one. Okay, well, why don't we go ahead and talk about your diagnosis with your autoimmune disease. And then we can always circle back to the yoga industry here and retreat centers, because that's always fun to talk about too.
All right. So I think about a year and a half ago, just around the time when COVID started, while everyone else was worried about COVID.
Timing.
It was something else for me. So what started was, it started with these mysterious rashes that would show up on my body, and I didn't know what it was. So it took me a long time and going to various doctors, because at first everyone just told me that it was allergies and prescribed me allergy medications. So it took me a long time before I was finally diagnosed. And so I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease called hyperthyroid, and it's caused by Graves' disease. So once I have a kind of a name to the disease, that's when I could finally begin to work on healing. So how did it happen is probably a question that many people ask. And I was, to be honest, very surprised myself because my whole life I've never been sick.
Well, not only that, because you have a regular meditation practice, you are a yoga instructor, you live the lifestyle of a yogi, right? So obviously something like this is very surprising because as many other episodes and other guests we have, in these conversations, sometimes yoga is what heals them in that way. And not to say that it, again, for you, it also did the same, but you're kind of like, it was kind of like you were living that lifestyle and then suddenly there was this bump that happened. Right?
Yeah, you said it right. I think, that's why many people don't expect that I would get sick, including myself. And I think one of the first emotion or strong feeling that I got after being diagnosed is really feeling a sense of shame and a sense of guilt. It's like, why me, right? I'm supposed to be a role model.
Example.
Exactly. That's exactly how I felt, and I felt really guilty.
Oh no.
I know, but that's not a good feeling because
right.
At the end of the day, we are all humans, and what I've really learned from all this is also that yes, I have a yoga and meditation practice, but sometimes you fall off the rail. You go off the rail, and it's life, right? That happens, and it's more about how this yoga and meditation help you get back on track very quickly. So thinking back about my life back then, the cause of hyperthyroid, there's many, so there's not really one thing to pinpoint.
Right.
So it could be the environment, it could be stress. It could be diet, it could be childhood trauma. So many.
It goes very deep.
It does go very deep, and every single doctor I've been to tells me something different.
Right.
Yeah. So it's been very difficult to really pinpoint. But just thinking back about my lifestyle back then, it was just, having a startup, even though it's now entering the 5th year, but the first 3-4 year was very stressful. It was very difficult. And I had to do most things myself, including leading retreats weekly. Sometimes 3 days, sometimes 6 days, sometimes 10 days. And when you host a retreat, Jen's done it before. It's not like an 8-hour job. It's 12 hours, 16 hours even. Even when you're not teaching, you have to look after the guest. So you have to make sure they're okay. You're always thinking about them. Okay, so I think working too much, even though it's something I love doing, eventually also kind of drained my energy, and that's probably one of the causes.
So when you said you got, I'm just curious because I'm not familiar with this, but when you said you got a lot of rashes, was that like, it was very itchy? Was it painful? You had what was the...
I think it's both. It was itchy and painful. Okay. And it would show up in different parts.
Irritating.
Yes.
Right?
Irritating, exactly. So the thing with hyperthyroid and Graves' disease is a lot of times it shows up when you first get diagnosed, it's most likely through blood work. Okay? But these things, you could have it and not show up on blood work. Like it could be an early stage.
Right.
And sometimes you just don't know.
Right.
So for me, it was maybe the first 3 to 6 months, I was getting rashes, nobody knows why, and it didn't show up on my blood work yet. Okay, so I wasn't really treating it properly. So until it showed up, then I knew, then the doctors knew, and then they could tell me what to do.
Right. Do you think, or would you say that the day you were told, you were notified, Miss Chang, you have hyperthyroid, was that kind of like you said earlier it was a big shock for you, but in terms of all the other different choices you've had to make thus far, because you and I have spoken many times in conversation, from leaving your corporate job, making that decision to pack up and move to Taiwan, and like you said earlier, do a startup in a marketplace that didn't really know what you were doing. It's kind of like, you do a what? You have a place out by the beach that does what? And then suddenly COVID, and then this health issue or health scare. Would this be kind of like that highlighting point for you? You think?
In terms of making a decision?
In terms of like that impact for you personally, and kind of like rethinking your whole world basically, because obviously COVID happened. although for us in Taiwan, we were still living quite normally. I think most people around the world remember 2020. Taiwan was kind of like in the news a lot for being kind of
Safe haven
and not touched by COVID. So your retreat center could have continued to run. And I'm sure beginning of the year it was running quite regularly. But you did also have to make a choice to decide how you want to, take care of your health and heal and maybe pivot with your business. All these, all these choices suddenly emerging in front of you and you're going, oh, what am I going to do here?
Definitely. I think with the thyroid disease, it was more something that kind of just happened to me. So I had no choice. Like it was just kind of your body telling you that, it's time to stop and really take a hard look on what you need to do to improve your life or improve your wellness for yourself or, put yourself first.
Yeah.
So I think that's something I've never really done before. I'm not a person to... even though I teach people about self-love and self-compassion, but it's very difficult. And I tell people that as well. It's one of the most difficult things to do.
To do it for yourself too.
For yourself.
To preach what you, to do what you preach, right?
Yes, exactly. So it's very difficult. So I, since I was a child, I've always been an overachiever, a perfectionist. I'm also a Virgo, so definitely perfectionist. So it's always about doing more and achieving more and, perhaps taking care of my family and even to some extent like pleasing other people. So that's kind of always been the way I've lived.
Your construct, how you were built.
Exactly. So for example, even when I'm running retreat, it's the way my retreat center work. One of the first kind of ways to differentiate ourselves is flexibility. So I let people join whenever they want.
They can sign up whenever they want.
They can sign up whenever they want. So
Which
they
is
can
a
come
beautiful
for one
thing.
day. It is. It's great for the guests. But
Yes, but it's super draining on you.
It's super stressful on the operational end, having to run a retreat last minute and put away all the things. And Jenn, you can probably testify. I almost never go out on weekends. Because I'm always working.
That is true. Don't know when your weekend, quote unquote, weekend rest day is. Yeah.
Exactly. So I always put work first. I put other people first.
Yeah. Was that hard for you to make that adjustment? Like when you realize, oh, I have to put the brakes on here now. Because I think a lot of us, when we are constructed in a certain way, and when something like this lands on our lap and we have to accept it and make changes, there are many different mindsets and ways to approach it, right? Some people might go on one extreme and other people might, completely fall apart. And some people might look at it in a positive note and say, okay, I'm going to accept this. And I'm going to make the necessary changes to, live with it, right? Like, and coexist with it. So for you, how did you manage that process?
So like I mentioned before, I think one of the first feeling I felt after being diagnosed is feeling guilt and feeling shame and failure. Like I failed myself or even people around me. So I think it took a while before I started to feel more positive about what's happening to me. So definitely in the beginning, early stages, it's all about like, why is this happening to me? It's all about like, I can't tell anyone, I need to hide this.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, did you like keep it to yourself and like you just continue to run your retreats and you like try to, present yourself like you're okay, but you needed to deal with this as well.
Definitely in the beginning, I wasn't brave enough to just go out there and tell people. So only my close friends and family knew. And then eventually maybe some of my close students knew. But yeah, it took a long time until I was being able to be open about it. And like even now coming onto the podcast, I haven't done that very often in the last year. Almost never talk about it.
Yeah. Well, do you feel comfortable now? Like, do you feel like you've done like that mental and emotional preparation to now when you meet people, be able to share what you've learned about this disease and your own process of healing? So I guess you can kind of share with us what did you do afterwards, right? Like now that when you found out you had this, what changes did you make and then to get better?
So one of the first... I guess the first thing I was presented with, my first choice was at the doctors. When they first told you that I was diagnosed with this, they just put you on medication. And so my choice was whether or not I want to take it.
Right.
And they told me if I were to take the medication, it would go on for maybe at least 2 years, or even longer. Some people take thyroid medications for life.
Lifelong, yeah.
So initially, just given my background in wellness and yoga and meditation and Ayurveda, I was very, very hesitant about it. It's almost like, no, medicine's bad for you. There's no way, right? So honestly, initially, I chose not to, because I wanted just to heal on my own.
Yeah.
So what I did was, I took a hard look at my life and tried to reduce my workload, try to be nicer to myself, try to eat better, and try to have a more regular routine and things like that. I went to see an Ayurvedic doctor just because I am a student of Ayurveda, and through herbal supplements and changing my diets and routine and detox method, my rashes was gone maybe within just 3 to 4 months, like completely from being covered in rashes from like head to toe. It even spreads to my eyes and my face. It was really scary. It was gone completely. So it's almost, even until now, it hasn't came back.
So sorry, could I just ask, like, that process of those 3 months, was it more like a habit change, or also you were taking some herbal remedies for it as well? Like, were there certain things you had to be very disciplined, obviously, during that period?
Yes,
right. Yeah.
I've tried everything. I think the biggest change is probably diet. So I was told, actually, so I've been a vegetarian for almost 5 years, and at that time when I saw my Ayurvedic doctor, she strongly recommended I started to take some animal supplements, not supplements, animal products in my meals, like bone broth and seafood and whatnot. Especially because I was trying to heal without medicine and without taking artificial, even some vitamins can be very artificial.
Yes.
Right. So to get those nutrients from food rather than from artificial supplements. So because of that, I really had to change my diet, and I actually started eating some more seafood, some more meat. So that was a huge change.
Oh, okay, yeah. Before we start recording, I was like, I think these biscuits are vegetarian. Not knowing that now you can eat non-vegetarian items. Okay, good to know.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, these are all just kind of labels. You know, like, what do you call a person who's eating vegetarian maybe 4 times a week, but maybe one day, like 3 days, there you don't really, there's no label for that. So I think when it comes to diet, I think it's very personal.
It is very personal, yeah.
So one of the first thing I did was just changing that diet, and I went on several detox methods.
Ooh, can you share some with us? Like what
Sure.
kind did you do?
So for example, my Ayurvedic doctor told me for 7 weeks, I had to go for massage, or I do it myself, like self-massage.
Yeah.
And then
Great detox,
exactly. Oil, massage and oil. It's actually, I mean, it's therapeutic, but it also helps to remove toxins from your body.
Was there a specific type of oil you used for the massages? Because different oils have different purposes, right? So are there more detoxifying oils to use?
So it really depends on your body type, because with Ayurveda, it's all about your body, what type of person you are, they call it your nature, and then you go and find something that's suitable for you.
Okay.
Yeah. So for example, hyperthyroid is a very pitta disease, so there's a lot of heat in the body. So I can't use too much of a warming oil such as sesame, because in that way it's kind of like increases like.
Yeah, you're just throwing more fire on the fire.
Exactly. So I go with more cooling oils. Yeah, that's an example. Okay, so that's diet.
Oh yeah, well that's diet
method.
and detox method. Yeah.
Yes, and also of course just going back to disciplined practice of yoga and meditation every morning. Yeah, I think as a teacher, and I'm sure a lot of teachers out there are probably gonna agree with me, but sometimes you're so busy teaching other people to do certain things, you don't have time for your own self-practice.
Yeah.
That's what kind of happened to me. So during that time, I was able to come back to my routine.
Yeah, it's always very important to remember to leave time for yourself, right? Because you get especially if you're doing your own business, you're always giving.
Exactly.
And you kind of forget because you're really trying to make this work. So you're just putting everything into it. and then we forget to step back a little bit and say, right, I need to replenish myself, otherwise I cannot give.
Yeah, exactly. And I wonder if it's a tendency for women to do that as well, because there's actually, they also say that, women are 2 to 3 times more likely to get autoimmune diseases in general. I wonder if it has to do with the mindset as well of women always wanting to do more.
So after your own method to heal, so then after that, what you said, it took about 3 months, and then the rashes disappeared. Then did you go back for an extra checkup, and where the doctor's like, oh, like how did you do that? Well, that's interesting, because once you are diagnosed with this, it's pretty much with you, right? Like going forward.
Yes, that's a good point. So that's exactly what happened to me. So I was better for a while. For 3 months, I got rid of it, and then for the next 6 months or so, nothing happened. I was normal. There was no more symptoms, and I thought I was healed and back to normal. But then, things got busy again, and then...
So what emerged this time?
Oh, so many things.
So not just the rashes, it was other things, right?
Well, rashes didn't come back anymore, but now it's more the typical symptoms of hyperthyroid, which is usually
like tired,
fatigue, racing heart, irregular heartbeat, most likely is like racing, pounding, muscle weakness, like even just climbing stairs. Like I was trying to do a tree pose for my students. The really easy pose where you just try to stand on one leg, and I almost fell down. It was really bad. I couldn't really, run, or even during my own yoga practice, it was really difficult. And what else? Weight loss. For some people it's a bonus, but
it's extreme. There's two extremes.
It's very
Either
extreme.
you gain a lot of weight or you lose a lot of weight, right?
Yeah, so for hyper, usually it means that your body's overactive and your metabolism and all that is overactive. So because of that, you lose weight. The other side, if you have hypo, it means that you are the opposite. So you're functioning slower than you would gain weight. But on a typical case for hyper, you would lose weight. Yeah. And maybe just feeling hot. You're
like hot flashes,
hot but... almost, yeah. I'm usually like a cold person, but you really feel hot. You sweat a lot, and what else? And insomnia, like not being able to sleep at all.
Okay.
Yeah. See, the thing is, like thyroid is very sensitive, even though it's so small. People don't notice it, but it's very sensitive, and it could affect your whole body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so then when that happened again, you went back to see the doctor. And then they said again, would you like to be on medication? And you said, no, thank you. I'm going to go back to my Ayurveda doctor to heal myself. Was that kind of like that process?
Kind of, but this time around, I went to see a different doctor. Actually, someone that referred me, who's more of a private clinic. And I thought I would get better care because you know how the hospital in Taiwan, a lot of time you have to wait for a long time.
Yes.
And it's very crowded. So I decided, maybe I could pay more money and then see a different doctor.
Yeah.
And when I went, the doctor actually told me I was probably one of the worst case like he's ever seen. It was really scary. Yeah.
This doctor said you were the worst case he's seen?
He told me I was the worst case he's ever seen.
This is like another double failure when you must have heard these words from this doctor.
Exactly. I couldn't believe it. And then he went on to prescribe me like pretty much the maximum dosage of the medication that I was supposed to take. And he just really asked me, like, you really need to take medication and all that. And I think he really scared me. And because of that, I'm like, he's a specialist. He told me I'm the worst case he's ever seen. So I guess I better take medicine.
Yeah.
So that's when I started to take it. But I also questioned him because I'm like, I don't understand why I have to go from 0 to such a heavy dose.
Yeah, because like what if like afterwards then you're immune to it, then there's no other doses, like there's no other dosages you can take.
Exactly. And when I went to the pharmacy, even the pharmacist was kind of shocked at the dosage and told me to go back to the doctor and double check. So I think that's what kind of made me decide to just take it, but start from a very small dose. I actually didn't listen to the doctor, and I took maybe a quarter of what he suggested. Yeah. And I also went back to my Ayurveda doctor at the time, asking about advice. And I guess that's when she told me that, Ayurveda is, even though it's the oldest holistic medical system and it's meant to help you treat you from the root cause. But at the end of the day, it's a good thing to to do it together with Western medicine as well if you need it, because every case is different.
It's different.
Yeah. Because the thing with these natural remedies, sometimes it's a lot slower.
Yes, it's definitely much slower. Yeah.
Yeah. And with Western medicine, I noticed, after taking it just for, let's say 2-3 weeks, like all the symptoms were gone. It was almost like magic. I felt like I was back alive, and that was crazy. Big difference. So that's when I was amazed, like this tiny, tiny pill, tiny, how does it have so much effect? But I also knew that I wasn't treating my root cause again, because how can I go from feeling so bad one day and then the next day feeling like everything is
back to normal?
It's back to normal. So it felt like perhaps what Western medicine, or at least the pills I was taking, was just covering up the true cause.
A quick fix.
It is a quick fix, but it is also important because it allowed me, more energy to get back to my life. It's almost like putting on a Band-Aid on a wound, so it allows you to heal faster. And I'm not saying that it's bad. Now I have a different kind of perspective, and I do see that Western medicine can be the benefit of it, and it's important to, when you need it, you take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was curious to ask. I always have all these questions when people start talking, and they're stored behind my brain. Your Ayurveda doctor is not in Taiwan, correct?
No.
So you were doing a telepathic through the internet with your doctor.
Yes.
And she is based in
the U.S.
The U.S.
Mm-hmm.
Can we share that information if people are interested in looking her up?
Of course.
Okay, so we'll put that in the episode resources. But also at the time, Taiwan is quite known for traditional Chinese medicine. Was that something you looked into as well, or just kind of didn't really look into that because you knew you're more interested in Ayurveda as a healing modality?
I started with Ayurveda because it's what I know, because I studied Ayurveda for many years. Later on, I also went to Chinese medicine as well. So it's almost like I just tried everything.
Yeah.
Whatever that was kind of natural, no side effects, and I tried. So Chinese medicine I've also tried, as well as acupuncture. I find it very helpful as well. Even to this day, I am trying everything. So since I started taking medicine officially, I was better again in another 2-3 months, and until now. So now I'm off medicine, but I'm still trying to I feel like I'm stable, but I don't know for how long. So I'm still trying to
navigate.
Yeah. So generally you have to be stable for 1 year until you can really declare yourself that you're in remission. Yeah. So for me, it's maybe another 6 months.
Did you figure out your root cause? Sorry, because you had mentioned that earlier, and I think we didn't really capture that part yet.
I think no, I haven't.
Okay.
I don't think there is one root cause, because the human body is all interconnected. There's so many things, right? So like you said, it could be because I was vegetarian. Not that there's something wrong with it. It's more like I myself, perhaps I didn't do much research on how to be a vegetarian. And stress, definitely. I think I was overworking and maybe too critical about myself. So it's not so much about what obstacle or what task or project I have to do, but more like the way I myself talk to myself. So maybe it's more like I'm never good enough, or I'm trying to push myself too hard. So I think changing that was very important for me.
Yeah, I just wanted to circle back because you said a few points, and I thought they were great points because in one of our earlier episodes with IC Liu, she talks about use kind words with yourself. So I think that's very important. She was diagnosed with breast cancer, and so that was some of her root healing as well. You talked about eating, becoming a vegetarian or some vegans. I had 2 other guests who talked about similar story, right? They were very devoted to being vegetarian or vegan, and it just their bodies just broke down because it's not what works for them, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, obviously. Like you said, everyone's different. So I think those are, again, very important points. Use kind words with yourself, and in terms of diet, what works for your body, right?
Yeah, I think when I first realized the importance of, I guess, being kind, or the fact that I wasn't being kind to myself, is when I was getting acupuncture with my Chinese doctor. And basically, I told her about this guilt and this shame that I'm feeling. And she went on to tell me that she also had a thyroid storm when she was, a few years back.
Wow.
And I was very surprised too, like you said, because she's a doctor that I respect very much.
Right, and she's an acupuncturist, right?
Exactly. And she basically told me that, like at the end of the day, we are all human. And she's like, you won't believe how many doctors and yoga teachers and therapists I have treated over the years, because everybody gets sick. It's just part of the human experience. And she went to say that, and it's really important. It's actually a good thing that you got sick, because then now you know how it feels. Then you're able to relate with your future students or your future clients, because you know how it feels.
Yeah, I mean,
and this is a learning experience.
It is a learning experience, and I mean, we'll wait and see. Maybe 5 to 10 years time from now, you might shift your programming as well to be more focused on autoimmune diseases and healing through that, right? Which maybe is already happening. And so I feel like that's a lot of times part of that path, right? In terms of what you experienced and how you took the tools you had around you to shape that and help others who are dealing with similar things. I mean, having said that, we are coming short on time, but I just wanted to also add a few more things. But in terms of autoimmune disease and women at risk, right? That's something I'm sure in these last 2 years since your diagnosis, you've done a lot of studies and a lot of readings on. And I think I see on social media too, a lot of people who are shifting their focus into more autoimmune based, right? So I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are on that and what you've learned in that process and what you think are important for women. I mean, men and women, but more women to be more aware and in tune, so that they can have more of a balanced lifestyle, right? That it doesn't trigger an autoimmune disease. What should we call it? Like a notification, like you have this.
That's true. I think at the end of the day, it's not like one thing we can do now and then forever be, not get autoimmune. It's more because when it comes to autoimmune, it's like it's everything, and it's an accumulation of what you do every day.
Yeah.
So it's more like taking time for yourself every day. Check in with your self-talk. Make sure you have time to do your yoga, your meditation. Make sure you always choose to eat healthy. Eat in, cook yourself rather than eat out, for example. So it's more like making all the choices that you have every day, but making the good choice.
For yourself.
Every day.
And that could be different for everyone, right? Because some people might not practice yoga or do meditation, but they love going for long walks, or they love running, or, they, I don't know, like playing computer games. That could be kind of relaxing for them too.
Yes, yeah.
Right.
And occasionally having time to kind of just step out. So maybe go on a retreat or just spend a weekend by yourself to really reflect on your life, like how you're doing, anything that's causing you pain or stress, and how can you change that. Yeah. So I think it's just more being aware of yourself. Being more aware.
Sounds so simple, huh?
I know.
It's like, just be more aware of yourself. Yes. And I think
and get regular checkups.
Right. And regular checkups is important. But I think the idea of being aware with yourself is kind of hard, right? Because it's like, for people who are so busy, and just like you said earlier, your previous lifestyle, like so structured in this way, it's like you don't know how to be aware of like what is wrong, like how do you, it's like if someone else tells you like, well, maybe you should just not take so many meetings throughout the day. Maybe you should take a time out and go for a walk for an hour. Don't look at your phone, and they're like, but I'm just used to it. That's like how I'm like, I run on that energy, and it's very hard to see it from the other side until, like you said, until you hit rock bottom, until it happens. I think that's why retreats, going on retreats, when you physically remove yourself from your everyday situation to give yourself that time to be alone and to reflect. I think that's important. So, once a year, 2 times, 3 times a year, I think that's
if you are the type of person who you feel like you just don't have time for self-reflection on a daily basis, then definitely try to go on a retreat 2-3 times a year. It would be very beneficial.
I like that. Speaking of retreats, maybe we can kind of slowly wrap up this conversation with talking about the retreat scene in Taiwan, right?
Yeah. So like you said, Jen, when I first started, I was one of the only ones, and nobody knew what retreat was. And people who are coming, a lot of them are going to Thailand, Bali. They don't think to look at Taiwan as a place of retreat. But in fact, Taiwan is perfect.
Perfect.
For
it's
retreat.
Perfect.
It's beautiful. It's just, we have everything. We have beautiful nature. Like you can go from ocean to mountain just in one day.
And we have hot springs.
We have hot spring. We have such rich culture and amazing food. Just, I think, and people are aware of like the culture itself. Because of the hot spring and all that. And so I think self-care is also very important in the Chinese culture. So Taiwan is an amazing place for a retreat. So since I've started, I've seen more and more people going to retreats, teachers hosting retreats, and a few more retreat centers popped up.
Yeah, I definitely would coin you as a pioneer in that frontier. And I think when we first met, we had this long conversation where I said, I'm so frustrated. Like, can't we find places in Taiwan that does it? Because my friends would know I'm kind of like a retreat workshop junkie. Pre-COVID, I would always travel I would travel somewhere for a retreat or a workshop. And I felt like it was so sad because how come Taiwan wasn't a destination where these amazing teachers would come and teach, right? Because a lot of them would say, oh yeah, we know Taiwan. We have to fly through the airport to get to Bali, And it's like, well, next time do you want to do a layover and maybe teach a workshop before you fly out? So I definitely think we're getting there, right? We're slowly getting there.
Yes, I think we are. I think more and more people are asking for it, especially after COVID. Everyone just wants some kind of cleanse or, time to be alone and just get away from everything. So I definitely think there's a trend towards more in-person retreats and more wellness experiences and gatherings.
Do you think that language is an issue though? Like, because we're Chinese speaking, so do you feel like there needs to be more of like a bilingual situation? I mean, your Chinese is better than mine. So in terms of if COVID is, a thing of the past in the future and we have people flying in and, do you think there will be a need for translators, or you think the marketplace will be mature enough to be able to handle, like a more English oriented scene?
I do think a bilingual program will be best because there's people wanting from both sides, So for example, the Taiwanese people who only speak Chinese, they're just starting to learn about retreats and they're very interested. But then there's the other side, people from Canada, US, Western countries, for example, they have a habit already, many, many years of going on retreats such as yourself, Jen. So I do think if the retreat program can be bilingual, then it would serve a lot more people. It'd be a lot more convenient.
So, do you want to share your upcoming project?
That's right. And speaking of the retreat scene.
And this is very exciting. I'm very, very excited about this. So I want you to share with us what's happening on your plate coming up.
So my latest project is I've been asked to manage a new wellness resort opening this August in Hualien. So Hualien is a city in central part of Taiwan. It's beautiful. It's got the national park. It has Taroko Gorge and ocean and mountain. And so I will be managing this new wellness resort, which will have in total 129 rooms. And inside we'll have a swimming pool. We have hot spring. We have Ayurveda spa, a dedicated spa for Ayurveda, and a retreat program that runs every day. So daily retreat program. I'm excited to share with everyone.
And you will be the director of this place.
I'll be the wellness director.
Mm-hmm. So that is very exciting because those who are listening, if you are a teacher or an instructor or a practitioner, definitely can reach out to you or look into coming out here to attend or to host your retreat, etc. going forward. I think that's really exciting. So before we officially close off, I always ask two things for my guest. I would always say, what are some 2 cents you would give to the audience who are listening today who resonate with your storyline? And also what books or resources that you would recommend that you felt really helped you, keep you grounded when it comes to times of, like, you said earlier, learning about your disease or having to transition through difficult things.
2 cents would be for other people who are like me, overachievers or perfectionists, to relax, to relax and to know that, life is not that serious. And in order to, yes, to have fun, but at the same time, more like taking care of yourself is first, because when you are well and healthy, then you have the whole world. You can do whatever you want. But when you're not, then the world is black and white. It's very dark. So it's really important to always put yourself first. And in terms of books and resources, I think one of my favorite authors who unfortunately just passed away is Thich Nhat Hanh.
Yes.
And he has actually, one of his books is called, I think it's called Healing the Inner Child, but don't quote me, something about the inner child. But that's a really good book that I was reading during my healing journey, because it's a amazing reminder to kind of look inside and remember how you were, kind of like why you started, and treat yourself the way you would treat a child.
Yeah. It's funny that you bring that up, because I oftentimes notice, because we're kind of at the age right now where all our friends are having kids. So it's just interesting to watch little kids, when you meet them when they're, when they were just born to maybe, 1 and 3 and then 5 and 7, just as they transition. And kind of going back to what you're saying, that spark of when they were the most themselves, at like that 1 to 4 age, where it's just carefree. They speak their mind, they make the funniest things. It's like they say the funniest things. It's like the purest form of who they truly are. And then as they go to school, as things, as rules are put in place, then you slowly see them shift, and I feel like as, maybe aunties or as adults or as parents, it's like, it's always helpful to keep that in mind, that you always have to remember what they were like, just so that you can help them remember what they were like as a child, right? Because that is their true essence, right? And then I think, I can't remember what the saying is, but I think it was like, when kids hit 7, that's kind of really when they really become that, like that structure that they are, or like who we are now, and then it's like when we hit 20 or 30s and we're spending like the next 10 years trying to figure out who that inner child is. Yeah. So I think it's always helpful to keep that in mind if you happen to be someone who does get to interact with young kids, to that, when they become teenagers or young adults, to be able to say, like, well, when you were 5, you never cared about what people said about your outfits, even though it looked hideous, Yeah. It's just interesting to see that progress. So I think those are very good points.
That's true. And actually in Thich Nhat Hanh's book, he suggested an exercise where you just take a picture of your younger self and you put it in front of you, and you can write a letter to your inner child, to your younger self, because like you said, we often forget.
That's a great practice. I think anyone who's listening to this episode should do that after they listen to this episode. So I will put all your information in the episode resources, including your Ayurveda doctor and the book and your website, and when the hotel is ready, maybe if that website is up as well, we can put that down there. And yeah, so people can reach out and follow you as well. Thank you so much for your time, Lydia.
Thank you, Jenn.
That's all we have time for today. Thank you for listening to Curito Connects. For more Connects content, collaborations, and discoveries set to inspire you on your own individual journey, please head to our website at www.curito.co. Until next time, stay inspired, and thank you for joining us at Curito Connects.